Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course American History Core 4 Project, and today we're going to talk about the Progressive Era. Oh, Mr. Green, are we talking about the insurance company that can save you hundreds of dollars on car insurance? Oh, me from the past, please shut up. The Progressive Era was a period of social activism and political reform. In its time, many addressed the problems caused by industrialization, urbanization, immigration, and political corruption. Stan, cue the intro. The Progressive Era was the age that people tried to solve the problems that they were facing all across the country, whether it be through individual or group action. The population of the U.S. was growing and its economic power was growing as well. In 1900, around 38% of Americans lived in cities, and by 1920, that percentage rose to 68% of Americans. Naturally, as the population of urban areas grew, so did the United States' industrial power in the North. The United States went from being predominantly rural to urban over the course of a century. In 1800, the U.S. population was about at 5 million people. And a century later, in 1900, the population increased nearly 15 times that number, with a total population of 76 million people. Every decade after 1900, the population continued to grow at an average of 17%. The growth of population didn't just allow cities to grow, but also allowed new job opportunities to rise. The leading city in population growth was New York City, as the city began to develop, with skyscrapers touching the clouds. Of course, the reason for the great influx of population was not due to the stork working overtime. This period of time in American history is arguably most known for immigration. Around 14 million Europeans immigrated to the US, with 8 to 9 million moving to cities. Let's go to the thought bubble. A small island in New York Harbor known as Ellis Island served as a processing center for most immigrants arriving at the East Coast. By 1910, 3/4 of New York City's population were immigrants or first-generation Americans. At the same time, the United States had difficulty absorbing the immigrants. Most of the immigrants chose to settle in American cities where jobs were located. As a result, the cities became more crowded than ever. A majority of the men began their working lives as low-wage, unskilled laborers in factory jobs that most Americans would not take. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Most immigrants came to America for the most obvious reason: opportunity. As industry both began to rise in manufacturing and agriculture, so did the demand for workers. Many factory jobs were considered unbearable and very unsafe. Workers had to organize into unions to get corporations to reduce hours and raise their pay. Of course, many progressives addressed and fought against the labor problem in America as mechanization led to many new issues. Oh, it's time for the mystery document. The rules here are simple. I guess the author of the mystery document. I am either right or I get shocked. I am in this cause with my whole heart and soul. I believe the progressive movement is making life a little easier for all our people. A movement to try and take the burdens off the men, and especially the women and children of this country. I'm absorbed in the success of that movement. Wow, I don't know. I want to say the ancient pharaoh Akhenaten of the 18th dynasty. What? Theodore Roosevelt? I guess that makes sense because Theodore Roosevelt's American and Akhenaten's Egyptian? Whatever. Alright, cut the cameras. John, buddy. John, you alright? John, talk to me. John. I don't think he's breathing. Someone call 911. Hey, I said cut the cameras!
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now
And I want to leave my car to my brother Hank. Now, which brings us to our last item of Mr. John Green's will. As it is written, Mr. John Green states, and finally, if I were to tragically die while in the middle of filming a crash course video, I give History Channel permission to finish the rest of the video. That is my last and final wish.
Well, let's get to work.
The Progressive Era. The early 20th century was an era of progressive reform and industrial expansion. Corporations had a problem that had been around since at least the 1880s. They needed to keep costs down and profits high in a competitive market. One of the best ways to do this: keep wages low, hours long, and conditions terrible. There was just one more issue with factory jobs: child labor. The hours were typically 10 to 12 hours a day. Working conditions were unsafe and often led to death. Working class and immigrant families often needed to have many family members to work in factories to survive. Living in the city wasn't much easier for your average working class or immigrant family. Little does this man know, his father was about to die. At the turn of this century, more than half the population of New York City and most immigrants lived in tenement houses, cramped, poorly lit, underventilated, and usually without indoor plumbing. The tenements were hotbeds of vermin and disease.
I'm back. It's me, your son.
Of course, my son. I'm afraid I'm dying.
Oh, you're not. You're just sick. You'll get better.
Leave me. Go out west. Start a farm. Start a family. Leave this miserable place.
I won't leave you here.
My time has come. You were right about me. What you said all those years ago. Just a tired old man. Waiting to die.
Pop,
You were right.
Pop, no.
Time is relentless, marching forever onward. Time will change everything as America pushes forward. We are pioneers and trailblazers. We fight for freedom. We have the courage to dream the impossible. We transform our dreams into the truth. We charge headlong towards our destiny. Our struggles will become a nation.